At the end of my first month in Lagos, Nigeria, I added up everything I'd spent on the ground. Rent, food, getting around, the visa, all of it. The total number was $803. Not for a week, for the month. About $28 a day in a city people had warned me was too expensive and also too dangerous. I've tracked every purchase I make country by country for 7 years. When I went back through that data, West Africa came out as the cheapest region I've ever sustained for months at a time. Cheaper than Southeast Asia, cheaper than the 5 summers I've spent in Bulgaria. This is the actual breakdown. 10 countries, 6 months on the ground, what each one costs, and where the cheap numbers stop being the whole story. Here's what I heard before this trip, almost word for word. West Africa is expensive, it's hard to get around, and not that safe. The expensive one is what this video is about. The warning actually shaped how we traveled, especially at the beginning. Partly because everyone told us it would be expensive, we were deliberate about where we stayed. So part of the low number is the region actually being inexpensive, and part of it is that we chose to keep our costs low. In 2024, Kevin and I crossed West Africa in 2 legs. The first ran overland from Lagos, west along the coast, through Benin, Togo, and Ghana to Abidjan in Ivory Coast. From there, we flew to Mali for a few days, then broke for the summer. The second leg started in Dakar, Senegal, down to the Gambia, then all the way back north, through Mauritania to Morocco, and we flew out of Marrakesh. 10 countries, about 6 months on the ground in total. The not safe warning I'll come back to near the end, it deserves a real answer, but the money part turned out to be completely backwards from what people told me, and I have the receipts to show you. So here's the headline with the caveat built in. Across 10 countries, I spent about $9,350 over roughly 180 days. That's about $52 a day, and that's everything on the ground. Accommodation, food, local transport, visas, all of it. Flights in and out aren't considered in these numbers. Now, $52 a day is not the lowest daily number in my data, not by a long way. India was about $14 a day, Nepal $34, Nicaragua $35. I even spent a week in Lithuania at about $21 a day. But every one of those was a short stay, and a short stay is easier to keep cheap after you exclude flights. You don't get tired of cheap street food, and you can rough it on accommodation a bit more. What made the West Africa number hold up is that a lot of it wasn't slow travel. Outside the 1 month in Lagos, we were moving through Benin, Togo, and Ghana, along the coast and a good way inland, one place to the next. Moving fast usually pushes your costs up, not down. Short stays, constant transportation. West Africa held at $52 a day for 6 months anyway. That's the claim I'll actually defend. Not the single cheapest place I've been, but the cheapest region I've kept going in for months. For comparison, Bulgaria, which I love and consider inexpensive, has cost me about $55 a day over the last 5 summers. Why are you wearing a headlamp?
Power's out. Again.
Again? Hi, I'm Caroline Lupini. I'm currently at Langue de Barbarie National Park. Let me give you the actual spread. Cheapest to most expensive, because the region is cheap hides how different these countries were. Nigeria was the cheapest at about $28 a day. It's also the one place we actually stayed put. A full month in one apartment, aside from a single weekend trip. Everywhere else on this trip, we were moving. Lagos has a reputation for being pricey by African standards, so a settled month landing this low surprised me too. What $28 a day bought included a comfortable enough apartment, eating out regularly, getting around a huge city. Mauritania was $31 a day, Togo $39, Ivory Coast $50, Benin $53. These are the middle of the pack and the most representative of what the region actually felt like day to day. Modest apartments, local food, mostly shared transportation between towns.
What kind is this?
cost $55 a day. That's not necessarily Dakar being pricier than Lagos, it's that we traveled quite a bit more throughout Senegal. And we did some nicer things like a stay at the Fatala Wildlife Reserve, which pushed the number up a bit. Toward the top, we have Ghana at $60 a day and Morocco at $63, more than double what Nigeria cost me. That's the pricey end of the trip, not the bargains of the rest, but still not bad. The Gambia is where the raw number lies a little. It comes in at $84 a day, but I was only there for 6 days, and the visa alone for Americans was $120. Spread a one-time fee like that across only 6 days, and it swallows everything else. Strip it out, and the Gambia was about $64 a day, just a touch more than Morocco. Mali was the real exception. With the security situation there at the time, independent travel wasn't really an option, so we booked a guided tour, which made it by far the most expensive stay of the trip. About $218 a day, over 5 days. Most of that the tour itself, and most of the rest the visa. I keep the guided tour part out of the regional average since a tour isn't comparable to independent travel in the rest of the region, but if you're visiting Mali the way you realistically can right now, $218 a day or so is what you can expect. There's one more place on this route I haven't counted on purpose. Western Sahara. We spent about 2 weeks in Dakhla, which sits on a lagoon and is one of the better kite surfing spots in the world. That was the reason we went. We did a kite camp, and the second week we moved to a nicer accommodation right on the lagoon. It was my anniversary gift to Kevin. So my Dakhla numbers are high, and they should be. About $168 a day, more than 3 times the rest of the region. After months on the road, keeping things cheap, this was the splurge we actually wanted. Hi, Kevin. Woo! The one stretch where we deliberately spent more on something we'd come specifically to do. I'm keeping it out of the $52 a day average on purpose. It was a deliberate splurge, not a fair sample of what the region costs day to day. If you skipped the kite camp, you could visit Dakhla for about the same price as the rest of the region. We just didn't, and I'd rather tell you that than pretend. So, what does $52 a day actually cost you in the things that aren't money? Infrastructure. This is not Southeast Asia, with a co-working space and a flat white on every corner. The Wi-Fi was usually fine, actually, but the power was extremely inconsistent. Outages were regular, and when the power's out, nothing else works either. If your work needs you reliably online, that's something you have to plan around here, not something you can assume. Long stay logistics. The monthly rate apartments that make somewhere like Bansko so easy mostly aren't there. And even if they were, with the visa limitations in many of these countries, you can't stay long enough to take advantage of them anyway. You're booking shorter stays, negotiating more, and moving more often. Quality is hit or miss. Some of the places I paid very little for were great, and some that cost more weren't. When you do find somewhere good, you might want to grab it even if it's above the average you're hoping to spend, at least as a break for a couple of days. Visas and borders. The fees are real money, and they're already baked into the daily numbers I gave you. But the heavier costs are the paperwork and the overland crossings, which take time and patience. In my opinion, the sensationalism around this region is mostly wrong. These were some of the most welcoming places I've traveled, but mostly wrong isn't ignore it. The precautions are real, and they're specific to each country. I share what I did and where I went. I don't tell you it's safe, and I don't tell you it's not. That call is yours. Who should think about longer-term travel in West Africa? If you've done some independent travel, you're okay with plans changing, and you can work around patchy power, West Africa might be the best cost to experience trade I've found in 7 years of tracking. If you need everything to work on the first try, this probably isn't the region to start with. To each their own, and that's fine. If you want to start tracking your own numbers like this, the toolkit I use, including the spending tracker all of these figures came out out of is linked below. And if real numbers, not round ones, is the kind of thing you want more of, that's this channel. Subscribe and I'll keep bringing you the receipts. I'm curious where this lands for you. Is $52 a day for a region people call expensive surprising? Or were you already on to West Africa? Tell me in the comments.